to driving. What is the place of autonomous vehicles? And we have the jingle too. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to express my gratitude for the invitation to take part in this amazing event. Today, I will have an opportunity to talk to you about the autonomous vehicles, the vehicles that move thanks to systems with no human involvement. Legal regulations that regulate autonomous vehicles are in a very interesting space currently. They are being developed, as you will hear in a moment. Before my presentation, I was talking to my colleague about my presentation, what I will tell you, and he said, but they are forbidden in Poland. It's not quite true. If we are in the domain of law, and we need to be precise, according to the legally binding provisions of law, autonomous vehicles are not allowed for the traffic. However, there are exemptions from the legal rules, and that's the case as well. Legal provisions allow testing of autonomous vehicles, and that's what I will tell you about more.
So we're talking about current regulations and amendments to the regulations concerning testing autonomous vehicles. Jeżeli chodzi o aktualny... Troszeczkę się zapędziłam. Dobrze, okej. Najmocniej przepraszam. Jeżeli chodzi o nasze przepisy dotyczące... As for our regulation concerning testing of autonomous vehicles, the legal regulations generally use the term of scientific works or research works, but for the sake of the speech, I will be mixing the terms, but let's assume that we are talking always about testing of autonomous vehicles. The regulations are in place in Poland since 2018, so this is quite a fresh new regulation. This was introduced by the Act of the 11th of January 2018 on electrical mobility and alternative fuels. Adoption of such provisions are inscribed into the stance of the European Commission, path to automated mobility, EU strategy for the mobility in the future. Automated mobility is the future, we must agree. Whenever it happens and such vehicles are permitted into traffic, it's hard to say when that will happen. But the regulations that are currently in place are a step towards this future and give us the framework for testing, legal framework for testing such vehicles. What are generally autonomous vehicles with view to current provisions, current regulations? If you look in the Act of 1997, the road traffic law, there is a definition of such a vehicle. It's a car vehicle equipped with system controlling the movement of this vehicle and that enable movement of this vehicle without interference of the driver. However, the driver may at any point take control over such a vehicle. So this is the interpretation also of the ministry, current provisions in Poland allow for testing for vehicles with conditional autonomous aspect. So there must be a rule that provides the driver with the possibility to take over control over such a vehicle. So the conclusion is that current provisions don't allow testing fully autonomous vehicles. The provisions are in the Act of 1997, but as I said before, they were implemented with a different act to this act. So please don't think that this is a mistake on my part, that these regulations are with us only since 2018. As for research works or testing, for them to be possible, two key conditions need to be met. First of all, we need to ensure safety on a public road in the case of testing such vehicles and obtaining permits. And of course, this calls for an administrative procedure that can be difficult to implement. On the slide, there are two synthetic steps from which the obtaining a permit depends. This is an administrative procedure, so we need an application to a proper organ that manages traffic on the road. Such an application needs to meet the formal conditions. It requires an attached third-party liability insurance policy, and so on. Then the application is considered by the proper authority on the basis of consultation with inhabitants of the commune. The consultations are a gate for the owner of the property that is along the planned route to file a complaint. Such a complaint, this causes that the organ cannot give a green light to such testing. Additionally, there is a requirement for consent of a road administrator and opinion of a police chief. So there are many issues on which whether the application will have a positive outcome or not depends, and there might be many obstacles to conduct such tests. And it seems that the legislators saw the problem. Firstly, that this regulation is quite brief. There are just several provisions. Additionally, testing is only allowed for semi-autonomous nature of the vehicle. And the path toward obtaining the permit is quite difficult. That's why an initiative has been created. The Council of Ministers prepared a project, the bill amending the Act on the road traffic, and the legislative process was quite smooth. On the 17th of October, the act was given to the president for signing. I'm not sure it was signed or not. I haven't checked it. But what saves me in this situation is that there is vacatio legis in this amendment up to 6 months. So we can assume this is not yet in force because the presidential signature is needed, and then since announcement of the act in the Journal of Laws, there's vacatio legis, so to a large extent we will only see the future of autonomous vehicle. I doubt that the president will voice veto. So this legislation result from the need to adjust the provisions to the current technological need. If we look at the current provisions, unfortunately the timeframes don't allow me for a broader discussion of all changes because the regulation is much more complex. There are many more provisions included as it is currently the situation. And moving on to the most significant ones that I will present to compare the previously presented provisions from the current status quo. So moving on to the most important amendments, the testing will be possible for fully automated and semi-automated vehicles. So there's also a definition of such vehicles. The autonomous vehicle definition is omitted here. This is no longer in the language. It will be used only in common language, but in legal language, the amendment gives us two new definitions. As for automated vehicle and fully automated vehicle, it is also reference to EU regulations, and in a moment I'm going to display 6 levels of automation included in this amendment, and you will see that vehicles fully automated will be subject to testing with a little asterisk that I am going to present you in a minute. What is also interesting, permit isn't required in the case of research works and testing on automated vehicles with the automation level lower than level 3. But as we will see in a second, on the next slide, If you look closely at the automation levels, they are included in the amendment. It will be appendix number 3. We have 6 levels of automation, an untypical numbering because we start with 0 and with 5, number 5. So this is the classification existing since 2019, issued by the association dealing with autonomous vehicles. If you look closely at this table, I don't want to discuss in detail all parts of it due to time limits, but it's worth mentioning 2 things. As for this listing, the division depends on whether a given vehicle has automatic functions and who is controlling the vehicle. If you look at this list from level 0 to level 2, the control over the vehicle is on the part of the human. So we are not talking about autonomous vehicle using colloquial language, but these are vehicles that in the case of 0 level don't have automatic functions, but it's allowed to use systems supporting safety. And with the following classes, there are more functions that are built on the automation. And we reach level 3 when the automatic functions appear, and the highest level of automation we have in the case of level 5, where the vehicle has automatic functions allowing for complete automatic driving in all road conditions. So these are vehicles where the system takes all the decisions, and the role of the person on board is just boils down to choosing the destination. This is also a risk because such a vehicle takes all the decisions, and our safety is in its hands. What is interesting, when I was verifying these provisions, I came across a provision saying that within the test, although it's allowed to test such a vehicle, it should be equipped with functions allowing for taking over control by humans. So perhaps it's a question to people dealing more with technology, whether such a provision will allow for actual testing of the vehicle, because the point is that such a vehicle shouldn't allow taking over of the control to the driver. But when I started thinking about it, this would be irrational that in testing conditions, taking over such control would be impossible. This would carry a lot of risk. So I understand the intention of the legislator. As to for the amendment, what remains is that this is an administrative procedure. The application has to meet formal conditions. Among other things, it will be necessary to attach to it risk analysis according to ISO 26262 pertaining to security systems in the vehicle. Another attachment should say that the internal simulation testing has been conducted in the physical trials, and that research work will not cause threat to the safety in the traffic or a serious disruption of road traffic. So these are requirements that are not known in the currently valid regulation. But when it comes to administrative procedures, these provisions do not anticipate consultations with inhabitants. There is no possibility to file a complaint of an owner of a property near the planned route. There is no need for consent of road administration or chief of the police. So these provisions, in a way, to a certain extent, aim towards obtaining such a permit. The authority that is responsible for issuing permits also changes. So it will be the National Coordinator of Research Works, the director of the Institute of Transport, to be more specific. I forgot. And this is dictated by the fact that the legislators saw that these kind of things should be managed by an organ that will be dedicated and will have a proper support. There is a needed risk analysis. There must be a competent team that will check whether there are conditions for issuing the permit. Hence, this is dictated by these changes. And this confirms also that the intention of this legislator was changing the provision on filing complaints. I was wondering when I analyzed the provisions whether a gate to participation of an owner of a property near the path of testing, would it be possible based on code of administrative procedure, but I think this interpretation needs to be rejected because considering that if the legislator wanted to have a legal interest to such a person, give the legal interest to participate in the proceedings, the legislator would maintain the provision on the possibility of filing the complaint, and according to the amendment, this is not possible. So the main question remains whether the new provisions, new regulations will facilitate the process of conducting tests. In a sense, yes. So there is a loosening and up of the administrative procedure in a way, but please note also that in order to obtain a permit, you need to follow other requirements that may involve certain costs and be time-consuming. For example, this document confirming that simulations tests have been conducted. So my conclusion is that perhaps this will cause that the administrative procedure will be less formalized, that perhaps it will be a gate to make it easier, smoother, but the beginning, the moment when we can initiate and file the application it will involve a lot of tasks and on the part of the entity that would like to organize such research works. So to summarize, autonomous vehicles, I think they're the future. The question is when they will appear on our roads. Compared to other developed countries, we are somewhere behind. Such initiatives have been already proposed on the basis of the provisions in force, and the question is, fingers crossed, I'm wondering if the provisions will really facilitate conducting tests, because it's all directed to, and this is the purpose of the provisions, so that in the future autonomous vehicles be present on our roads, because undoubtedly they are a step towards new technologies, and they give the possibility to other people who may have difficulties in driving cars by themselves. For example, the people with disabilities, there can be different situations that would hinder the possibility for such people to drive cars. Of course, with opportunities, there is always a risk connected with the safety, so giving it to a system, trusting it to a system. And other issues are cybersecurity and data protection. This also needs to be considered, and amendment also refers to these aspects, because violation of or breaking into the system may cause that the vehicle the system will not control the vehicle properly. So this is another risk. And another thing is high costs. The amendment stipulates an application cost. It's either 20,000 or 40,000 zlotys, depending on how long the route is. If it's within a single voivodeship, it's 20,000. When it covers the area of 2 or more voivodeships, maximum 5 voivodeships, then the fee is 40,000 zlotys, and for changes of such a permit, you have to pay additional 5,000 zlotys. We are only talking about filing of application and obtaining the permit. You still have to remember about other costs connected with testing technologies of such vehicles. So I believe in the future of autonomous vehicles. I'm very curious how this future will look like and how the amendment will meet the needs of the current requirements as far as testing of autonomous vehicles goes, because I think this is really a step towards the future, towards innovation. That's all on my part. Thank you for your attention, and I wish the rest of the speakers good luck, and thank you very much.